What's up guys, TSJAwesome 628 here, back again with another F1 2020 My Team career mode video, this time for the Austrian Grand Prix, where we started off by renewing our sponsors, and last episode we obviously ended our win streak as Daniel Ricciardo won the race, but the team still does have a win streak of 9 races, so let's see if we can extend that at this race here. We put on simulator training as our activity. We don't have many days between now and Austrian Grand Prix, but it should help Daniel Ricciardo's stats even more, so we will have a true fight with our teammates. As we head into the laptop, we will check the weather forecast, and as per usual, it is completely dry this weekend, and I guess just no change, which is disappointing. Eventually we'll want to have some mixed conditions, as we don't seem to ever get mixed conditions anymore. Like, we only had that one race at Zandvoort. Looking at the development updates, we see Mercedes and Racing Point still very close to each other, and Ferrari have caught up to them as well. So we'll see if Ferrari can also get in the mix this weekend, challenging the front, and Red Bull are just behind that lot. So we always know Verstappen can do well in that car. Not so sure about Albon though, so it seems that those teams are pulling away from the midfield, but whether that continues will remain to be seen. After practice, we put on an aerodynamics upgrade for the rear downforce on the car, and that will just extend our gap at the front, especially in downforce. Our car does have by far the most downforce on the grid. As we head into qualifying, we start off the first lap in Q1. This is quite a short lap, only 1 minute, but it still has a couple of challenging corners, mainly fast corners such as this penultimate corner where we lose the back end slightly and make a slight mistake going into the final corner, but it should still be enough to send us through, and indeed it is, as we do finish the session in P2, 8 tenths behind our teammate Daniel Ricciardo, but we did make quite a big mistake, and there's definitely more time to be found in the upcoming sessions. Both Mercedes there were then 3rd and 4th, and both Ferraris 5th and 6th, and both Racing Points 7th and 8th, so it does seem like those 3 teams are the next 3 teams, as I did originally specify. As per usual, it was the 2 Williams that were finished bottom of the session, and then Latifi was 20th, Grosjean 19th, Russell 18th, and Magnussen 17th. So no surprises for who got knocked out this weekend, as it is the bottom 3 teams. It has been at most races this season, but obviously at a couple races, such as the last race of the French Grand Prix, one of the cars, or maybe sometimes 2, have been able to make it through unexpectedly. But we'll move on to Q2 and see if we can find the pace difference that we had to Ricciardo and close the gap to him, and hopefully set a more clean lap which doesn't involve any mistakes in Q2. So starting our lap now, and Leclerc's just come out the pit, so we're going to have to overtake him on this lap, but he does let us through, so he doesn't hinder our lap. And as we head through the corners, not making the same mistake we made on the last lap, and therefore we can come across the line, and it's a much quicker lap, which currently puts us in 1st, and by the end of the session we do stay in 1st. Ricciardo is 2nd, but he was on the medium tyres, so he's done that now 3 races in a row now, where he's qualified on the mediums. I don't know if this is his new strategy, just to try and be able to beat me if he starts on the harder set of tyres. But we both make it through to Q3, and we'll be on different strategies tomorrow. Then Bottas and Stroll, both Ferraris, the other racing watch Giovinazzi and Hamilton come next, so it does seem like it is those 3 teams battling out next, and then Verstappen is also there, with Gasly being the other driver that made it into the top 10. That means there is no space in the top 10 for Sergio Perez, who just misses out by 3 thousandths, and then Carlos Sainz in 12th, Alex Albon in 13th, and Danny Kvyat in 14th, and then come the other Renault of Esteban Ocon and the other McLaren of Lando Norris. So it does seem that the drivers and cars that we think are going to be quicker are now starting to show that in qualifying here, as well, Verstappen in the Red Bull. Albon can't quite match him, but we already knew that. And then the other three teams, which do seem to be fighting at the front end of the midfield. It feels weird to be saying that Mercedes are sort of part of the midfield, because they're not going to be challenging us. So then I guess they have to be part of the midfield. But maybe at one race in the coming future they'll be able to challenge us, depending if their car's right for it. But on to our first lap in Q3 then. And this is the session that matters. This is the session we'll be fighting for pole. I assume with our teammate Daniel Ricciardo. I don't assume there'll be any shocks. And we have looked at the quickest team so far, as we come across the line to set a 102 flat, so slightly slower than we did in Q2. And it's 4 thousandths off our teammate Daniel Ricciardo. So as we head on to our final lap in Q3, we're going to run through it the entire lap, as it is quite a short lap, so I thought I'd leave it all in. But we need to try and gain enough time to beat Daniel Ricciardo's time. So we headed through turn 1, we gained just over a tenth and a half as we head into the turn 3 hairpin, and we get a much better exit off of that, and now we're already 3 tenths up, so it's looking good so far. And we're going to head into turn 4. Quite a few incidents of this corner in real life over the last couple of years, and we stick about 3 tenths up as we head into the fast double left-hander, and hopefully gain some more time on the exit of them. And we're already 4 tenths up as we head through this section, and carrying on into the final 2 corners, we're going to try and gain even more time on the exit. And as we come across the line, we're going to be over 5 tenths up. Will it be enough for pole position? It may be. Let's see. No, it's not. Ricciardo must have improved by a lot as well then. Let's see what the gap is right at the end. And the gap to Ricciardo is 100.
Top 3 today. Ricciardo, Thomas and Valtteri Bottas. Well, that wraps up qualifying, but don't worry, we'll be back tomorrow as we head into the Grand Prix.
So Ricciardo takes pole position for the Austrian Grand Prix, only 100th ahead of us, and then we were 7 tenths ahead of the Mercedes car, Valtteri Bottas. Charles Leclerc was 4th, so good result for Ferrari there in qualifying. Lewis Hamilton will start 5th, Lance Stroll 6th, Max Verstappen will start 7th, Sebastian Vettel will start 8th, Pierre Gasly will start 9th, so a good effort from him, managing to out-qualify the other racing points of Antonio Giovinazzi, who couldn't match his teammate's size of 6th, same as Vettel couldn't match his teammate's size of 4th. So this field probably seems a bit closer now between the Mercedes, Ferraris, Red Bulls and Racing Points, but Gasly does seem to be in the mix there, as Giovinazzi failed to out-qualify him, and I do feel Giovinazzi will be disappointed going tomorrow's race. Obviously, he hasn't finished the last 3 races. Engine failures. Actually, no, he did finish in France. He just didn't score points because he spun. But he crashed in Canada and then had an engine failure in Baku. So Giovinazzi will be wanting to score some points again in this race, as well, he's forgotten what points feel like, it seems.
Fans really seem to enjoy that. Made it look easy. It's always good to qualify at the front, isn't it?
Yeah, it is good to qualify at the front. Obviously, I'd rather it was pole position, but we still think we have a good chance for tomorrow to beat our teammate. But yeah, they did do a fantastic job. I thought I did a perfect lap almost, and there weren't really any mistakes and not much more time to find, but he still found more time than me.
Starting grid looks for today's race. Daniel Ricciardo has a clear view ahead from pole position, and Thomas completes the front row. Looking at the rest of today's grid, we have Bottas, Leclerc, Lewis Hamilton and Stroll, Verstappen, Gasly, Giovinazzi and Sergio Perez, Sainz, Albon, Sebastian Vettel. They'll be starting further back after an earlier grid penalty. And Kvyat, Ocon, Norris, Kevin Magnussen and George Russell, Grosjean, Latifi, De Vries and Jack Aitken.
So it will be probably a 2-stop strategy for us. I will try and see if we can make the tyres go the 1-stop, but I doubt it. I do have it as an option. We don't want to be using the hard tyres this weekend, so it'll probably be a 2-stop from soft to medium to soft. But hopefully we can get ahead of Daniel Ricciardo as quick as possible, as he will be starting on the medium tyres and will probably be slower than us in the first stint. And we want to make sure that we do not get held up by him, especially if he goes for a 1-stop and we need to try and make the 2-stop work. Obviously he did hold us off while on the 1-stop at France, but at Austria I don't think you get the same benefits from this particular 1-stop. So we start the race, but it is a poor start from us, and Ricciardo covers us off, and now Bottas is going to try and go around the outside of us and also our teammate Ricciardo, and Valtteri Bottas has taken the lead from Mercedes. So a brilliant start from the Mercedes man, and he's jumped both me and Ricciardo on that one. And as we go on board with the Renault and Red Bull, and they just smash into the rest of the cars there. I think that was Perez and Albon who dived it down the inside, and it hasn't worked out well for them, as both of them will have some damage here. And now Pierre Gasly is trying to go round the outside of Alex Albon, and he's going to go up the inside into the next left-hander, and he'll retake the position, as I do think Albon will have a bit of damage, and I do think Perez will probably have to pull off into the pits at the end of that one. Indeed he does, as we can see on the minimap. Now it's our turn to try and overtake Daniel Ricciardo here, who's a bit slow on his medium tyres and hasn't really got them working yet, and as you can see Bottas is already pulling away from him. So we're going to try and make the move up the inside into turn 3, and we do turn in quite early, so we probably could have broken a bit later, and that means we are still side by side on the exit, but we still get the position with better traction, and we move ourselves up to P2, and now it's time to chase after Valtteri Bottas. We set a fastest lap at the end of lap 2, at the start of lap 3, and we're already trying to pressurise Bottas, which will run slightly wide at turn 1 though. But we should have some straight line speed to be able to catch up straight the way up to Bottas, especially with the DRS that we have as we head through turn 3, and we're going to hope to get a better exit, as we're only 4 tenths behind, and we'll see if we can go for the move into turn 4, as Bottas is going to go defensive on us, which means we're going to try around the outside, and he does leave us the room, and we did try it, but he did just about manage to hold on, as we couldn't go too aggressive, otherwise we probably have gone wide at that corner. And as we head through the next few corners, still just stuck behind Bottas, we'll try and get him just after turn 1, as that's probably the best straight to overtake at. And as we head through the final corner, we run slightly wide, but it's okay, and as you can see we're already gaining on Bottas. We're within 3 tenths of him, and we should be able to overtake him very shortly. And yeah, we're definitely close enough on this lap, and we're going to pull to the inside of Valtteri Bottas, and we're going to take the position as we head into turn 3, and we now lead the Austrian Grand Prix, and now it's just about trying to pull away. Ricciardo is definitely struggling, he's fallen into the clutches of Verstappen and Leclerc, who are also trying to overtake him. Now on board with Lewis Hamilton here, who is battling the racing points, and I believe he has Antonio Giovinazzi just in front of him here, and he's going to pull to the outside of Antonio Giovinazzi, and as they head into turn 3, he's going to send it around the outside and take the position from the racing points. He moves himself up to, I believe, P6 in this race, as we get a warning for exceeding track limits as we start lap 5. We still set the fastest lap, and it was quite a harsh warning. I don't think I really extended, but I must have just been outside the white line. Now on board with Lance Stroll, who's also trying to overtake his Racing Point teammate, so Giovinazzi doesn't seem to have that much pace in this point of the race, but Stroll successfully pulls to the inside of his teammate, and with the DRS he can make sure he's ahead by turn 4 and takes the position up into P7 in this race. As we push on to lap 6. We're now 2 seconds ahead of Bottas and 4 seconds ahead of Ricciardo, and we gained another second as we start lap 7 on both of them. So this race is going quite well for us, and we do seem to have quite a lot of pace on this soft tyre. So it's going to be good to continue it. Obviously our stint is 11 laps, so the more we can gain in this stint, the less we'll have to gain in the next couple of stints if we are going to try and counter the one stop that Ricciardo will do, and maybe even Bottas will do. On board with Carlos Sainz here now, and he's going to try and overtake Alex Albon, who's been holding up this train with the little bit of damage he obviously got on lap 1, and Carlos Sainz is now going to go round the outside of Alex Albon, and I think this is the lower end of the points, around P9, P10 that they're fighting for, and Sainz moves himself up a position. So as we head on to lap 11, Charles Leclerc is now going to go from either Max Verstappen, with Ricciardo and Bottas just ahead of them, and Charles Leclerc is going to pull to the outside of Max Verstappen, and he's trying to take P4 off him, and as they head through turn 3, Leclerc is going to try and get a better exit, and he's going to have the DRS, but Verstappen will also get DRS on, I assume, Ricciardo ahead, but Leclerc will pull to the outside and have their position as they head into turn 4. Now on board with Alex Albon again, who still seems to be struggling in this race, and now we've got Danny Kvyat, who's looking to have a move on him, but Kvyat can't get the move into turn 1, and therefore he will try and get it into turn 3 as they head through turn 2, and Kvyat pulls around the outside, and it's a good move from him. I don't think Albon is really in a state to fight these battles right now, as he does seem to be really struggling in this race. So we head on to lap 11, almost forgetting that I had to pit there, but we cut across and don't seem to receive any warning or penalty for it, which is good. So we successfully get into the pits. I know Sonoda received a couple 5-second penalties in real life for a similar incident of pulling into the pits too late by crossing the white line before entering the pits, but the game doesn't seem to really care about that, so it's good that we don't get a penalty for that, as we come out on the medium tyres already in P6, ahead of both of the Racing Point cars. So it's good news for us, as we're already cleared some of the midfield traffic, and now we just have the Mercedes cars plus Verstappen and Leclerc to deal with. If we even catch up to them, we have 5 seconds of clear air, as we're now on board with Pierre Gasly here, as he's also just come out of the pits, and he doesn't seem to really get going, and I'm not sure if this is an issue with putting the tyres on or it's just an engine issue, but it seems he's going to have to retire from this race, and he does just pull to the side, and he's not going to be able to continue going. So Pierre Gasly is out of this race. So disappointing, as he made it into Q3 in that AlphaTauri and has not been able to continue with form in this race. But as we head to the end of lap 13, we're going to set a new fastest lap of this race as we overtake Leclerc and Verstappen, who pit. So we're back up to P3, and on lap 14 we overtake Bottas as he also pits, and we are up to second now, and we're only 4 seconds behind Ricciardo, having made a pit stop more. So as Ricciardo pits at the end of lap 16, we've almost already got the gap down enough to mean that the one stop that he's doing will be nullified, as we're on board with Charles Leclerc here, who has smoke from his car and also hits Lando Norris. So I think Leclerc was in the middle of an engine failure, and then he just couldn't control his car when he hit Lando Norris, and now he's holding up his teammate and Lewis Hamilton, I believe this is, as they head into the next set of corners. And now Vettel and Hamilton will go side by side, as Vettel's going to try and take the move into turn 1. Hamilton looks to have got a slightly better exit though, but Vettel will get DRS, so that should help him, as the 2 Racing Points are also going to watch from behind, and Vettel's going to go up the inside into turn 3. Hamilton's going to keep it around the outside, but will he get good enough traction to hold off Sebastian Vettel? It doesn't seem so, and Vettel looks to have got the position as they head into turn 4. Hamilton's going to try and pull back round the outside, but he doesn't have the grip or the run, and Vettel will hold on to the position. But a shame for Charles Leclerc, who was in a really good position as he and now has to retire through an engine failure, and he was battling Verstappen for 4th, and now, well, he's not, and now Vettel is the sole Ferrari in this race, who is also doing well. He's currently P5, but I do think he has to stop again, as he's gone on to another set of softs, and therefore is doing the 2-stop in this race. Now on board with Carlos Sainz, and he's trying to overtake Antonio Giovinazzi around the outside, and he seems to have more pace in Giovinazzi in this race, and I think that's because he's on the medium tyres, whereas Giovinazzi is on the hards, and Carlos Sainz looks to have made the move, but Giovinazzi probably has more straight line speed as he tries to keep it up the inside, but Carlos Sainz will pinch into the apex, and then keep it round the outside and gain the position. I believe they're fighting for P8 currently. Now on board with us again as we head through the laps. Our pit stop lap is on lap 25, so we only have a couple more laps before we have to pit as we head through the next few corners, and we're catching up to Nicholas Latifi, who is behind both Williams cars in this race, so I'm not sure what's happened to him, but he wouldn't be expected to have been finishing behind the Williams cars, so I think it's a very disappointing day for him, even if he's not going to be getting any points if he does something better. As we head through the final few corners, catching up now to the 2 Williams cars of Nick De Vries and Jack Aitken. Aitken is currently beating his teammates, but they are both about to be lapped in this race as we head through turn 1, and I hope to be able to clear both of them on this straight, as they should both have to pull to the side, and De Vries successfully does so as he pulls to the inside, and Aitken does do the same, so we're going to gain those positions as we head through. Aitken dives back up our inside, and we made a bit of contact there, and I'm not really sure what Aitken was doing there, as he let me through and then dived back up the inside. So we'll probably see a replay of this now as we're on board with Jack Aitken. He lets us go and then just sort of dives up the inside. I'm not exactly sure what he was doing, but luckily it hasn't given us any damage. Obviously, we had an incident with Sebastian Vettel when lapping him in Canada, but that one didn't affect us as much. But I'm not sure if he got any damage as we come into the pits at the end of lap 25 for our second pit stop. And we should be able to come out already ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, which would be good news for us, as that means that we can just try and go as fast as possible in the final stint and not have to worry about trying to overtake a driver. And as we come out of the pits, indeed we are ahead of Ricciardo, and comfortably by about 5 seconds. So this final stint will literally just be about trying to set the fastest lap we can. So we set 2 purple sectors on lap 26, which is our lap 27, and now we're on board with Lance Stroll here, who is trying to overtake Lewis Hamilton for 5th position, and Lance Stroll is going to pull to the outside of Lewis Hamilton, and it seems Lance Stroll's on the mediums whereas Hamilton is on the hards, and that means that Lance Stroll is going to have a tyre advantage, and they're both the same engine, so the straight line speed should be roughly equal, but Stroll is DRS and manages to pull round the outside of turn 4 and get the move, as we go over a second quicker on our fastest lap to set a 1:03.1 and a new fast lap of this race. Now we're lapping Jack Aitken again, and this time he lets us through a bit more easily, and we're going to catch up to a large train of cars right now, of some of the Alfa Romeos, Hasses and Williams cars, as they're all going to go side by side with each other, it seems, and we hit Sergio Perez if you make a bit of contact with him. I thought he was going to pull to the side, but then he didn't. He then pulled back across, so I was quite surprised by that. But Grosjean gets out of our way, and now we both have Nick De Vries and Nicholas Latifi ahead, as Nick De Vries lets us through into the fast left-hander. So Latifi has now recovered both positions on the 2 Williams cars, so he is now ahead of the Haas of Grosjean as well, so it's now turned into a decent race for Latifi. He would have wanted to be getting higher up, but as long as he's beating his direct rivals, obviously he isn't beating his teammate Magnussen or Russell, but as long as he can beat one of the Haas cars for Alfa Romeo's sake, if they can get both drivers beating a Haas car, they'll be happy. Now on board with Antonio Giovinazzi, who's now having to defend from the AlphaTauri of Danny Kvyat. Obviously, Kvyat's teammate Gasly is already retired from this race, so Kvyat is the sole AlphaTauri left. But he is going to try and gain as much points for the team as possible as he overtakes Antonio Giovinazzi to move up to P8 in this race. And he is going to try and gain 4 points if he stays like this, but Carlos Sainz is just up the road, so he may want to try and catch Sainz as well. We'll also see whether Ocon behind will be able to have a go at Giovinazzi. Now on board with Alex Albon, who is now holding up the Haas car of George Russell and the Alfa Romeo of Kevin Magnussen, and this is where you know that he does have some damage in this race, because he should not be holding these drivers up, and George Russell pulls to the outside, and it's just too easy for George Russell to overtake Albon, and it seems like Albon's race was ruined on lap 1 when he broke too late and him and Perez both collided with a bunch of other drivers. Now back on board with Lewis Hamilton, who's going to try and overtake Lance Stroll. Obviously, Lance Stroll got him a few laps ago, and these two are going to have a good battle, battling for 5th position, as Hamilton re-overtakes Lance Stroll and moves himself back up to 5th, and trying to get as many points as he can for Mercedes. Obviously, I think Racing Point are theoretically Mercedes' nearest challengers for 2nd. Red Bull are also up there, battling them with Verstappen's points, so we'll see whether Mercedes crumble or whether they can keep holding on to P2. Now on board with Kevin Magnussen trying to overtake Alex Albon, and he does so into turn 1, and you don't see many overtakes into turn 1. And now we've got Lando Norris and Sebastian Vettel, who are also looking to release moves on Alex Albon, and Lando Norris goes down the inside of Alex Albon, and on the exit Albon actually gets a decent exit, but Norris still gains the position and is going to move himself up to around P13 or something, and now Vettel is going to look for a move on Alex Albon as he's the last man to do so, and he's going to try it up the inside into this fast left-hander, and a very bold but very good move from Sebastian Vettel, and he doesn't want to be left behind by the other drivers in that train. Now we're going to be catching up to that train very shortly to lap them all, so hopefully they don't get into our way, as we do have Alex Albon directly in front of us, and obviously we don't want to get any damage. We're already 19 seconds ahead of Daniel Ricciardo, and there's 2 laps to go, but Alex Albon does pull to the outside and then cuts back to the inside line. I'm not sure what Albon was doing there, because he seemed to let us through and then sort of try and defend the position, and we are lapping him, so he should know it's blue flags and should let us through there, but luckily again we don't make any contact and we survive without any damage. We're now going to have to go up to Sebastian Vettel, Kevin Magnussen, Lando Norris and George Russell, as these guys have pulled away from Albon anyway, just in the space of a lap, and Vettel will let us through on the start-finish straight. So across the line with 2 laps to go now, and up next is Lando Norris and Kevin Magnussen. Norris will let us through right now, and he did think about letting us through on the left and then decided to let us through on the right, and then Magnussen let us through on the same straights to make sure he didn't lose a position to Norris. And now we're going to try and get George Russell as well, who again is having a good race in that Haas car, but he's not quite getting points. He's P11 again, which for him will be disappointing, as he really wants a point in this season. He keeps finishing P11. I think this will be his 3rd P11 or something, and it'll be quite disappointing for him watching his teammate get points when he has probably been the better driver this season of the two, but can't quite get those points. But we do lap him, and therefore we're probably going to be ending any chance of him getting points in this race, as he wouldn't even benefit from a DNF because he'd be a lap behind and they'll have done a lap more than him. now on board with Lewis Hamilton and Lance Stroll, and this battle isn't over yet, as Lance Stroll is going to try and re-overtake Lewis Hamilton as they head on to the final lap, and Lance Stroll is going to try and go round the outside, but Lewis Hamilton does seem to hold on, but now Lance Stroll is going to tuck into the slipstream, and with the DRS is going to pull round the outside of turn 4, and Hamilton had a collision with Albon here a couple of years ago, but he does leave the space for Stroll, and Stroll's going to try and send it down the inside into the next corner as he really wants this position. And this is a really good fight between the two, as neither wants to back out, and Lance Stroll successfully overtakes Lewis Hamilton. So he should be able to claim P5 now, as you can see on the top left, but for us that doesn't really matter, as we dominated this Grand Prix. Small scare at the start when we were jumped by Bottas and still behind Ricciardo, but since then it's been domination. So now it's 10 wins in a row for the team, which is a good achievement, as Danny Kvyat wins Driver of the Day.
Incredibly happy as they make their way up to the podium. A much-deserved victory and a brilliant performance from them all.
So, back on the top step of the podium after missing out last race, but another 1-2 for the team. Our third in a row, because we didn't get one at Baku, but I think we got one at Canada, France, and now Austria. So, good domination from our team.
Thomas increases their championship lead. Some amazing talents out on the track today. But Anthony, who would you pick as your driver of the day?
Well, Crofty, Daniel Ricciardo would have to be my driver of the day. It's less about what he did right, but how little he did wrong. Perfect driving. All respect to the fans' choice, they fully deserve it. But I just feel that my pick had a little more on their plate, so their ability to keep a cool head and come through for such a strong finish made the difference, at least in my opinion.
It's time to check out the constructors' standings. The current leaders continue to extend their lead at the top. Meanwhile, a strong weekend from Red Bull this time out, and they improve their position in the championship. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action. I can't wait to see what's next.
So we win the race in the end and get fastest lap by over a second. And Daniel Ricciardo finishes second, and somehow Anthony Davidson thinks he deserves driver of the day. I know the fans voted for Kvyat in this game at least, but I can't see his logic of why Ricciardo deserves driver of the day after starting first and finishing 20 seconds behind his teammate. But Bottas finishes third, so he was pretty comfortable for third that entire race, and Verstappen was pretty comfortable for fourth after Leclerc retired. Stroll and Hamilton had a great battle, with Stroll ended up coming out on top. So good news for him and for Racing Points, as they have been lacking some points in the last few races due to unfortunate retirements, crashes and spins. So Hamilton's sixth, Sainz is seventh, good result for McLaren. He had some good pace in this race, and I think he made the soft medium one-stop strategy that we were thinking about work pretty well. I think Fiat also made that strategy work, and that helped him get up to 8th. Giovinazzi didn't actually have that much pace, and he just seemed to be getting overtaken by the cars. I think he got up to 5th or something after the first lap, or 6th, and just fell back from there, but still came over 2 points. Ocon was 10th, rounding after points. George Russell just missed out again in 11th. Vettel finished 12th in the end. Magnussen 13th, Norris 14th. Albon and Perez both had damage in 15th and 16th. Grosjean 17th, Latifi 18th, De Vries 19th, Aitken 20th, and Charles Leclerc and Pierre Gasly both unfortunately DNF from this Grand Prix while in good positions. So they'll be looking to bounce back in the next few races, and luckily for Charles Leclerc, I think he finally has a good car, as Ferrari did seem to be able to fight for the upper end of the points and maybe for podiums. They do already have 2 podiums this season, and hopefully for him he'll be able to get some more podiums in the coming few races. In the championship, we now lead Ricciardo by 80 points, extending our advantage, and he is 45 points ahead of Valtteri Bottas. Lewis Hamilton is then in 4th, comfortably there. Well, I say comfortably, he's only 7 points ahead of Verstappen, but I think he will be able to extend that advantage. Lance Stroll is then only 6 points behind Verstappen, and that battle for 4th is sort of heating up, as there's then a 20-point gap back to Leclerc, who is in no man's land, as he's then 25 points ahead of Norris. Norris is then 8 points ahead of Giovinazzi, who is just holding off Ocon, who's on 29, and Vettel on 26. And then comes the massive queue of cars, with 3 of them on 16 points and 1 on 15, which sees Sainz, Gasly, Albon and Perez all battling for that 12th spot. Kvyat is just behind them on 10 points in 16th position. And then Grosjean is the only other scorer on 2 points. George Russell still so close to getting points, but failing to do so. In the Constructors, we lead Mercedes by 209 points, still not quite double their score, and I don't think we're going to be able to achieve that, but it's good to be pretty close. Racing Point are then 118 points further back from Mercedes, but they are still 10 points ahead of Red Bull, who are 16 points ahead of Ferrari in their battle for third. McLaren and Renault are then battling for 6th, with McLaren just about ahead. AlphaTauri on 26 points, Haas on 2, and Alfa Romeo and Williams yet to score.
You and your teammate took the top 2 positions today. Have you got the best car out there?
Yeah, we do have the best car out there. We have had for some races, and 10 races of wins in a row is good. Yeah, they did go better than last weekend. Obviously, we failed to win last weekend, but it's good to be back on top, and I'm happy I could do so. Yeah, it is a great thing for the team. 3 1-2s in a row, very good job for the team, and hopefully we can continue going into the British Grand Prix. So we now have a new rivalry with Sebastian Vettel, and we are currently winning that rivalry, as I would expect to do so. But Ferrari have built a decent car, but Vettel, we lapped in this race, so it's good news for us that we can win this rivalry. And in the acclaim levels, again, none of us go up a level. Still a level 14 driver, Ricardo level 15 is a team level 17. But we gain 1.63 million from sponsors. Obviously, at the start of next episode, we'll have to try and re-sign Daniel Ricciardo's contract going into the British Grand Prix. So we do have enough money for that, definitely. And then we're probably going to go on a spending spree at the start of next episode with the remaining cash that we have, as we won't need to save any of it for next season. As most, I think you want to save a little bit, but that doesn't matter for now, as we should gain enough in the last 2 races of the season. So we're going to go foot to the floor and try and blitz the rest of the opposition. But that will all be in the next episode, and I'll see you guys next time for the British Grand Prix.